They say blood makes you family. But they never tell you how easily it can drown you too. My name is Zoya. I was 21 when my parents died in a bus crash that made the headlines for one day and disappeared the next, like every other poor tragedy in this city. I had dreams once. College. Art. Maybe a small design studio of my own. But those dreams evaporated the moment I saw my 6-year-old half-brother sitting on the police station bench, hugging his knees, eyes swollen from crying. Ryan. He was just a boy. My father's second child from his second marriage. After his mother passed, he had no one. And even though I'd barely known him until then, I picked him up in my arms that day and made a promise I had no right to make. I'll never leave you alone, Ryan. I'll be everything for you. And I meant it. We moved into a small rented room above a tailor's shop. I dropped out of university, sold my books, and started working as a cleaner during the day and a server at night. Ryan was my world. Every rupee I earned went to his school fees, his clothes, his meals. I'd eat what was left, usually nothing but bread and water, but I made sure he never felt the hunger. I remember one night he caught me soaking my feet in cold water after a 14-hour shift. He must have been 10. He brought me a towel and said, "One day I'll buy you a big house, Appa. You won't have to work anymore." I smiled through the pain. I don't need a big house, Ryan. Just stay good. That's enough. He was good back then. He'd fold my dupatta when I dozed off, warm up food when I forgot to eat, hug me after bad days. He used to sketch little thank you notes for me on scraps of paper. I still have them, tucked in a box I can't bear to open anymore. Years passed. I got a job as a housekeeper in the city's most powerful household, the Kamals. Mr. Kamal was one of those smooth-talking billionaires who smiled with his teeth, but never his eyes. He ran a chain of export factories and sat on charity boards like he owned compassion. His mansion had golden chandeliers, private chefs, an indoor pool, and workers like me who lived off scraps. But it paid enough. And more importantly, it gave Ryan a glimpse of a world he could never have imagined. He was 17 when I got him a part-time job at the Kamal's accounting office. Just basic filing. But he wore a tie on his first day like it was a crown. I watched him straighten it in the mirror and smile with a spark I hadn't seen in years. "You look smart," I said, adjusting his collar. He grinned. "One day, I'll own a house like this. You'll see." I laughed. "Dream big. But stay honest." I should have known then. That hunger in his eyes, it wasn't just ambition. It was something else. A thirst to escape the poverty-stained skin he grew up in. And slowly, the boy who used to save me scraps of food began staying out later, dressing sharper, talking faster. He made friends with Mr. Kamal's son Arif. Rich, arrogant, bored. The kind of boy who called drivers by their first names, but never remembered them. I didn't like Arif's influence. He talked about people like they were possessions. One night, Ryan came home wearing a watch I didn't buy. "Where did you get this?" I asked. He shrugged. "A gift." "From who?" "Don't worry about it, Appa," he said, brushing past me. "Why do you always assume the worst?" Because I was starting to feel it in my bones, that shift. That silent wedge growing between us. Then came the worst moment of my life. There had been whispers at work about someone stealing company files, leaking salary data to labor rights groups. One morning, the HR team stormed in. I was called into Mr. Kamal's office and accused of being the whistleblower. I stood there, stunned. I had nothing to do with it. They showed me printed emails, signed documents, all pointing to me. I begged. "Please, sir. I don't even know how to access this data. I just clean your floors." But Mr. Kamal smiled coldly. "It's unfortunate, Zoya. We trusted you. But this breach is serious." I turned to Ryan. He stood in the corner, silent, avoiding my eyes. His hands folded, lips sealed. I called out to him. "Ryan, tell them. Tell them I'd never do this." But he didn't say a word. And in that silence, I felt myself break. They fired me on the spot. Security walked me out. Ryan didn't follow. I walked home that day alone. No job. No honor. No explanation. That night he came home late. Dressed sharp. A gold chain around his neck. He didn't even apologize. Just said, "It's complicated, Appa. You wouldn't understand." I had to look out for myself too. I looked at him, this boy I raised, fed, fought for, and realized I didn't know him anymore. I wasn't asking for your success, I whispered. Just your loyalty. He rolled his eyes. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic? He had no idea. That night, I cried for everything I had lost. But more than that, I cried for the part of me that had loved him like a mother. And as I curled up alone on our mat, one thought stayed with me. If I had known that the boy I fed from my own plate would hand me over like cattle, I might have walked away earlier. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in, like water through a crack in the ceiling. Quiet. Damp. Rotting everything you once believed in. After they fired me from the Kamal mansion, I expected Ryan to come home and scream, cry, fight, something. But he didn't. He walked in that evening with a new blazer over his arm and takeout in his hand. Expensive takeout. I could smell the butter prawns before he even stepped into the room. You didn't have to bring food, I said, still on the floor, packing the last of our things. The landlord had given us notice. No job, no rent. Ryan shrugged. I was hungry. I stared at him. His hair slicked back, a new watch on his wrist, his voice deeper, colder. The same boy who once cried when I got a paper cut now sat across from me and licked his fingers like we weren't drowning. I lost everything, Ryan, I whispered. And you just let it happen. He looked up then, not angry, annoyed. Appa, it's not like I made the decision. But you stood there. You said nothing. You let them humiliate me. He set the food down and stood. You think I wanted this? Maybe you don't understand how the world works. People like Mr. Kamal, when they want to get rid of someone, they find a way. I just stayed out of it. I wanted to scream, but the pain was louder than any anger I could muster. Do you even remember how many nights I fed you instead of eating? I asked. That was your choice, he muttered. The words felt like slaps. He left that night. Didn't say where he was going. The next morning, I found out he'd moved into an apartment downtown, paid for by Kamal Enterprises. Fully furnished. Marble tiles. Rain showers. A kitchen bigger than our entire room. My former employer had rewarded him for loyalty. That week, I slept on the steps of the community temple. No roof. No Ryan. Just silence, and a betrayal I couldn't explain to anyone without choking on my own words. A few days later, I ran into Mrs. Han, Mr. Kamal's longtime housekeeper, and the only person in that mansion who had ever treated me with kindness. She sat next to me on the park bench and handed me a packet of warm samosas. They used him, she said without me even asking. Mr. Kamal saw how much Ryan wanted out of poverty. He dangled the golden rope, and Ryan took it. Simple. But at what cost? I asked. Mrs. Han sighed. Some people climb so high, they forget who tied the rope in the first place. She paused. You raised him like a mother, Zoya. But he's not your son. Not really. She meant well, but those words cut deep. Ryan may not have been mine by blood the way a child is to a mother, but he was mine by choice, by sacrifice, by every sleepless night and skipped meal. And now he belonged to them. 2 months passed. I tried everything. Laundry jobs. Street cleaning. But no one would hire someone accused of corporate theft. Even if there were no charges. The Kamals hadn't pressed any. They didn't need to. The stain was enough. Then one afternoon, as I was wiping tables at a roadside tea stall, I saw a familiar car pull up. Ryan stepped out in a tailored navy suit. His hair glossy. His shoes clicking on the pavement. He didn't see me at first. He was too busy smiling, taking selfies with Arav and some other elite boys I recognized from the mansion parties. I stood frozen, holding a dirty tray. Then he spotted me. His smile faltered for half a second. Just a flicker, and then he turned back to his friends, whispering something. They laughed. Laughed. That night, I broke down in the public toilet where I washed before sleep. My reflection looked like someone else. Gaunt, sunken, hollow-eyed. Not the woman who used to pack tiffins for a little boy with scraped knees and big dreams. I wanted to curse him. I wanted to hate him. But hate is a luxury. Hunger doesn't care about your emotions. Weeks later, salvation came from the most unexpected place, a prison. I was collecting leftovers from a wedding hall when a fight broke out nearby. I got caught in the scuffle and arrested by mistake. They held me overnight, treated me like I was scum. But in that cold cell, I met a woman named Nazma. Short, loud, and completely unafraid. She had served 3 years for embezzlement and was about to be released. "You've got that look," she said to me, squinting. "The look of someone who's been burned but still carries the matchstick." I laughed bitterly. "I have nothing left." She pointed to her heart. "You have your story. That's your weapon." We stayed in touch after her release. She introduced me to an NGO that helped women who had been wronged and shamed. They taught me skills, basic accounting, kitchen management, even how to write a formal business proposal. I absorbed it all like a sponge. Soon, I was helping run a food cart near a government building. Simple biryani dal roti. Clean, affordable, honest. People started noticing. From cleaning tables, I began balancing accounts. From sleeping on steps, I started saving for my own space. And through it all, I remembered. Every night before I closed my eyes, I replayed his silence. His face when I begged for help. His hand holding a pen that signed my ruin. Ryan may have forgotten me, but I hadn't forgotten him. If someone had told me that Ryan would sell me for comfort, I would have slapped them. Not because I was in denial, but because I believed in the bond we shared. I believed love, especially the kind that raised someone from diapers to degrees, could not be bought. But I was wrong. It started with whispers. A friend from the old days, Sheila, who still worked in the Kamal household, sent me a voice note one night. Her voice trembled. "Zoya, please don't be angry. But I overheard something today. Mr. Kamal told Ryan he had to choose his new career or you. They needed a clean image. No connections to scandal. And Ryan, he didn't even hesitate." I sat frozen in my one-room rented apartment above the catering kitchen I now helped manage. My hands trembled as the audio ended. I pressed replay. Again. Hoping I'd misunderstood. But it was clear. He'd signed papers. Helped Kamal's legal team pin the worker leak scandal on me retroactively. Even though no charges had ever been filed, those papers would have destroyed my chance at ever clearing my name. They'd stay in their internal HR systems, passed around quietly, blacklisting me for life. He hadn't just betrayed me. He'd buried me. I felt like vomiting. I staggered to the sink and splashed cold water on my face. My reflection looked back, tired, older, angrier. He was my brother. My baby brother. I taught him how to tie his laces, held his hand on his first day of school, and now backslash. He had erased me like a stain. But then I remembered something Nazma once said to me. The people who break us always expect us to stay broken. That's their real crime. I stood up straighter. If Ryan had chosen to walk into the fire, fine. But he'd forget that I was the fire. A week later, I requested a meeting with Mrs. Joshi, a retired government official who now ran the food stall business I was part of. She liked me, trusted me. I laid out a plan. Expand the stall into a proper tiffin service for mid-level offices. Homemade food, subscription-based, guaranteed clean and on time. "Why now?" she asked, sipping tea. I smiled. "Because I'm tired of surviving. I want to start living. And I want them to see it." She chuckled. Spoken like a woman with unfinished business. I didn't deny it. With her backing, I got funding. Tiny at first, but enough. I hired 3 women, fellow survivors like me. We cooked in shifts, packed the food ourselves, and delivered it with pride. Our tagline was simple. Meals from women who refused to give up. Within 3 months, we had 30 clients. One of them worked for Singh and Mehra Exports, Kamal Enterprises' biggest rival. That's when fate turned. Mr. Rajat Mehra was nothing like Kamal. Where Kamal wore charm like armor, Rajat wore blunt honesty like a sword. He tasted our food at a client's birthday party and asked who ran the kitchen. When I stepped forward, he raised an eyebrow. "Zoya, you used to work for Kamal, didn't you?" I stiffened. "Yes. Until I didn't." He nodded. "Good. Means you already know how snakes operate." I blinked. Was this a trap? But he leaned forward, eyes sharp. "I've been waiting for someone like you." He offered me a job, not just cooking, but consulting for their new employee meal program. A real position. Real pay. Real power. When I asked why me, he said something I'll never forget. Because anyone Kamal tried to erase must have scared him. As I rose, so did the rumors. Apparently, Ryan had started slipping. He missed deadlines. Spent more time at parties than in meetings. Kamal had given him a shiny car, a corporate card, and praise, but never real power. He was a pet. A mascot for poor boy makes it fake. And pets, I knew, were disposable. Then one morning, I got a text from Sheila. He's signing something today. Something big. They're tying his name to the labor lawsuits from 2 years ago. Kamal is cleaning house. I stared at the message. I knew that trick. It was the same one they pulled on me. Set you up, praise you, bleed you dry, then throw you under the legal bus. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered the way he stood still when I begged him to speak. The way he wore a gold chain and ate garlic prawns while I folded my life into a garbage bag. So I sent a message to Mr. Mehra. Ready to bring them down? He replied with a single word. Always. That evening, I sat at my desk, my own desk, inside a modest but thriving food services office. The woman who once scrubbed floors now had her own client list, a salary and savings. Outside my window, the sky was darkening, and with it, so was the empire that once destroyed me. Because Ryan hadn't just sold me. He'd written his own auction tag in the process. And the same hands that once fed him, they were now writing the menu for his downfall. The day I walked into the building with my name on the lease, I didn't cry. Not out of pride. No, I was too tired for that. But because something in me had gone still. Like a storm that had finally learned to listen to itself. It was a small space. White walls. Second-hand chairs. A chipped desk. But it smelled like cumin and cardamom. And the floor was clean. And every window was open to the sky. Freedom, I thought. It doesn't need chandeliers. Our kitchen team had grown to 6. All women. All wounded. All determined. Rena, who was dumped by her husband for not giving birth fast enough. Perveen, whose sons called her useless, until she walked out of their house with just her slippers and a spoon. And Mira, a quiet girl who barely spoke but made the softest rotis I'd ever tasted. We called ourselves Das Darkwing Daughters. Because none of us had anyone left, and yet here we were, feeding the city like it owed us something. And perhaps it did. One afternoon, while labeling lunchboxes, I saw a name on the order sheet that made my heart pause. Arif Kamal. No, I whispered to myself. But it was true. His company had quietly signed a contract with our meal service through a third-party HR firm. He would never have seen my name on the back end. But he was about to taste my food again. Not off a silver tray. Not with mockery. This time, it would be my kitchen, my ingredients, my price. I didn't add extra chili. I didn't spit in his food like some dramatic revenge fantasy. I simply packed it with care. Labeled it with my clean handwriting. And folded the paper napkin the way I used to in the Kamal mansion. Back when I was invisible. Now I wanted to be remembered. The months passed. Business boomed. Corporate women began asking us for meal plans. I got invited to speak at a women's leadership summit. Me, Zoya, the ex-housekeeper with no future. And one day, after my talk, a woman came up to me. Smartly dressed. Stern face. She handed me a card. Mehra Group Head of Strategy. I believe you know our CEO, she said, smiling. Rajat Mehra? I replied. She nodded. He'd like to see you. The meeting was short but powerful. He greeted me in his glass office and pointed to the city skyline. You see that tower over there? Kamal's head office. I nodded. He tapped the folder on his desk. We're taking it. And I want you to cater the press conference. I blinked. Why me? He leaned forward. Because no one represents poetic justice better than you. That day, I cooked the menu myself. Tamarind rice, masala okra lentil fritters, my mother's recipes. The ones I used to make for Ryan after school. And while I stirred the dal, I remembered his little feet dangling off the counter. His voice saying, Appa, make it spicy, I want to grow strong. I wiped a tear with the back of my hand. He had grown strong. But not the way I hoped. The press conference was a media circus. Cameras flashing. reporters scrambling. And right at the center, Rajat Mehra, announcing that Kamal Enterprises was under investigation for labor violations, tax fraud, and illegal document laundering. The walls were caving in. And as fate would have it, Ryan was there too, sitting in the back, pale, sweating, alone. He saw me, and for the first time in years, he looked small again. That evening, after everyone left, I stepped outside to load leftovers into the donation van. A voice called behind me, "Appa." I turned. Ryan. He was thinner, tired, the gold chain gone, the swagger replaced by a slouch. "I didn't know it was you," he said softly. "Didn't know what was me?" I asked. "The food, the company, the storm that just destroyed everything I thought I built." I didn't reply. He took a step closer. "You're right to hate me. I don't even ask for forgiveness. I don't know who I am anymore." I looked at him for a long moment. "You're still my brother," I said. "But that doesn't mean I have to invite you back into my life." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I thought I could climb out of poverty by stepping on your shoulders. I didn't realize I was breaking your back." I almost smiled. Almost. Instead, I handed him a box of food. The same tamarind rice he once loved. "Eat," I said. "That's all I have left to give." He took it. And as he walked away, slow, quiet, I felt something uncoil in my chest. Not peace, but closure. That night, I sat with my team. We had sold out early again. Rina told a joke. Perveen scolded Mira gently for adding too much ginger. And I, Zoya, once a ghost in someone else's mansion, laughed. Not loudly, but fully. Because sometimes revenge isn't fire. It's a kitchen full of survivors who feed the world with dignity. There are two kinds of revenge. The loud kind, fast, messy, explosive. And then there's the slow kind. The kind that simmers for years. That grows inside you like a second spine. The kind you serve not with a knife, but with a plate of food, a folded napkin, and a quiet smile. Mine was the second kind. When Mr. Mehra asked if I wanted to cater the Kamal family's legacy celebration gala, marking 30 years of business, I didn't answer right away. I simply said, "Will they know I cooked it?" He smiled. "By dessert, they'll remember nothing but you." It was being held at the Sapphire Grand, a 5-star hotel where I used to clean toilets as a teenager. Full circle, I thought. Back then, I scrubbed stains behind the scenes. Now, I'd be feeding every guest in the spotlight. We designed a menu that looked elegant on paper, but every item was a memory, a mirror, a symbol. Spiced lentil soup. The meal I cooked after Ryan got his first B grade and cried in my lap. Tamarind rice with toasted peanuts. The comfort food I packed for him during exam week. Jackfruit kebabs. Our Friday treat when we couldn't afford meat. And for dessert, saffron milk cake, the one he once said tasted better than any rich man's pudding. I poured my past into every dish, not with bitterness, but with intention. Let them taste who I was. Let them choke on who I've become. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne. Journalists, politicians, industrial tycoons. Every seat at the Kamal's table filled with people who had once passed me in hallways without ever looking down. Mr. Kamal stood near the stage in his velvet sherwani, face full of charm. But I saw the sweat behind the glow, the nervous flicks of his eyes. Because the whispers had begun. The leaked reports. The worker lawsuits reopening. And the presence of his former disgraced housemaid as the head caterer wasn't helping. Especially not when Rajat Mehra walked in and greeted me first. Then I saw Ryan, seated beside Arav, laughing hollowly, his hair styled to perfection, but his fingers twitching. I knew that tick. He was cracking. He turned to pour water and locked eyes with me. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I just stared. And that stare said everything. I'm not yours anymore. Dinner was served. And the room changed. You could hear forks clink in reverence. Murmurs of surprise. Heads turning. Eyes narrowing with nostalgia. Even Mr. Kamal's wife whispered, This tastes like something from childhood." One guest called me over. An editor from a lifestyle magazine. "Who designed this menu?" she asked, fanning herself. "It's emotional. Like a memory you never knew you missed." I bent down and answered softly. I did. Every bite is a chapter from a story no one wanted to read. But the real moment came with dessert. As the saffron cake was served, the hotel screens, previously showing Kamal Enterprises milestones, suddenly flickered. And then it played. The footage. A hidden recording from Kamal's own office. Ryan's voice, flat and professional, reading aloud the contents of the falsified documents that had framed me 2 years ago. Sheila had leaked it. The entire ballroom fell silent. Then gasped. Then turned. Ryan's face went white. Arv stood up in confusion. Kamal shouted for the AV team to stop the screen. Too late. The press had already seen it. Phones up. Cameras rolling. And I walked out of the kitchen, apron off, spine straight. Silence followed me like royalty. I climbed the steps to the mic stand, took a breath, and said just one line. Thank you for dining with Dastarquin Daughters, where every meal is made by women who were told they were nothing. Then I stepped down and walked out. Outside, under the hotel's gold-lit canopy, Ryan followed me. Appa, wait. I turned. He looked like a boy again. A terrified, humiliated boy in an expensive suit too heavy for his shame. I didn't know. I didn't think it would ever. You didn't think at all, I said calmly. You just took. His voice cracked. They were going to destroy me if I didn't sign those papers. And you destroyed me instead. He dropped his gaze. They fired me, he whispered. I nodded. Good. He looked up, eyes rimmed with tears. Do you hate me? I paused. Let the silence hang. No, I said softly. I pity you. That's worse. Then I handed him one last box, wrapped in brown paper. Inside, a tiffin of saffron milk cake. The last thing you'll ever get from me. He held it like it weighed 1,000 bricks. I didn't stay to see if he opened it. I walked away. And this time I didn't look back. It's strange, what peace feels like after a war you never asked for. It isn't loud. It doesn't come with fanfare. It's quiet, like standing in the ruins and realizing you survived. A week after the gala, the headlines exploded. Kamal Empire crumbles after secret recording leaks. Ex-workers' revenge? Or justice long overdue? Meet the woman who cooked her way to redemption. I didn't read most of it. Let them guess, let them sensationalize. I wasn't chasing attention. I was claiming dignity. Ryan didn't call, didn't text. But one evening, I found him sitting outside my kitchen after closing hours. He looked hollow, like someone who'd spent too long pretending to be whole. I opened the door, leaned against the frame, arms crossed. I won't ask to come in, he said softly. I don't know where else to go. I stayed silent. He glanced down. I've lost everything. You sold everything, I corrected. Even me. His voice broke. I was scared. You don't know what it was like. They offered me power, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't that poor kid you had to carry everywhere. And you think I felt powerful cleaning floors for the same people? I snapped. He winced. Do you know what I learned the night I went to jail? I said. Not that they were cruel. I already knew that. I learned that you were capable of silence. And that silence became the loudest betrayal of my life. He wiped his face, shaking. I want to change, Appa. I'm ready to start over. Even if it's from zero. I studied him. The tears didn't move me. Not anymore. But the crack in his voice, the break in his pride. Maybe that was real. I believe people can change, I said. But that doesn't mean they get to come back. He nodded slowly. I understand. I handed him a flyer from the stack we give to women who need help. We train. We hire. We start from scratch. He looked confused. You'll work for someone else. Learn what it's like to scrub from the bottom. Earn the man you think you are. He clutched the paper like it was a lifeline. I will, he whispered. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't offer tea. I just turned and went back inside, back to my girls, my kitchen, my real family. 2 months later, I stood in front of a crowded room at a business award ceremony. They called my name. Zoya Khan, founder of Dastarquin Daughters, winner of the Social Impact Entrepreneur of the Year. Applause. Flashes. the weight of a plaque in my hands. But all I saw was my team. Rena holding her head high in her first sorry. Perveen smiling without apology. Mira clapping with joy like a child. And I? I stood there not as a survivor, but as a builder. Because the truth is, Ryan may have been the fire that burned me, but I was the ashes that rose. Sometimes the worst betrayal comes from the ones you raise. But revenge doesn't always wear rage. Sometimes it smells like turmeric, moves like silence, and serves justice on a plate. If this story moved you, remember, loyalty isn't blood. It's choice. And dignity, once reclaimed, feeds generations. Like, share, and tell us below. Would you have forgiven him? Or shut the door forever?